People who have been in successful if we're both single at X age, we'll get married relationships. What is your story? I met someone once who did this for tax purposes. They were already good friends and planned on divorcing if they ever met someone they wanted to marry. He was confused as to why his relationships never lasted past him saying he was married. I had a friend who was in a shitty contract for an apartment that he needed to get out of. He got married to one of our other friends, also a guy, to get out of it. They got it annulled right after, but I sometimes will make a comment at a bar when he's talking to a new friend or a girl. Hey man, you still married to that dude? You can get out of a rent contract by getting married? Aren't most rental contracts usually rolling every 12 months? Wouldn't have to be so obsessed with saving a little money to revalue through taxes if he worked a little harder or increased his own success a tad. Strange way of thinking. Also, I don't know how it works in the US, but where I'm from, divorces are very expensive, even amicable divorces. I'm not talking about the whole she took everything situation, but when you have to split assets 50/50 each, former spouse ends up with more like 45% of the couple's wealth, and the remainder is lost in taxes, legal fees, etc. It seems like a weird bet to do it for tax purposes if you intend on getting a divorce down the road. You don't have to split 50/50. Any couple can agree to split things any way they want. Probably just keep separate bank accounts, and it doesn't have to be messy. Can get what's called a prenuptial agreement ahead of time to avoid it getting messy. Just means you can agree to not be financially responsible to the other person after divorce. Not me, but my two friends who made this pact both turned the appropriate age in March of this year, and I can't wait to remind them. Edit. Both have birthdays a couple days apart at the end of March, but I'll take screenshots of the conversation when I remind them. Edit. 3/17. Apparently both of them are in relationships right now. I didn't talk to either. It's just that both actually posted about their significant others on social media in the last few weeks since this comment, even though they never mentioned them before. Sorry y'all. I may still remind them at the end of the month after their birthdays, but just for fun obviously. I'm a bit disappointed as well, but at least they both seem happy with their significant others. My husband and I met playing FFXI, an MMO, when we were about 14 years old. We lived one state over, and became good friends, chatting online and on the phone mostly. When I was going through a typical exaggerated end of the world breakup where I claimed to be unlovable and alone forever, he was trying to comfort me and said, if we're single at 24, we can get married together. I reminded him of that a bunch of times in the future when both of us went through bad relationships. At age 20, finally both single and capable of traveling, we went on our first date. It was lovely. We went to a museum and one of the best steak restaurant in the city. However, we totally couldn't afford the steak. Did 2 years long distance, USA, Japan. Continued dating. Married at 26, 2 years late, and went back to that steak restaurant and got the most expensive steak. Still married and happy. Okay, so kinda happened. My husband and I were best friends in middle and high school. After multiple failed teenage relationships, we made a pact to get married at 35 if we hadn't found anyone yet. We lost touch in our early 20s for about 10 years each with a child and failed marriages under our belts. We reconnected in our early 30s, realized how amazing we are for each other, and have been happily together since. It was a year or two into our relationship when a mutual friend reminded us of our pact. We didn't get married until 36, but go us, lol. A lot of people seem to have this deal with deadline alt age 30. Is it only me, or is that super young to give up on finding a partner? Depends on sitter. 30 is young as in Nick and SF, and old as balls in the South and Midwest. I had this with a girl. The 30 years of age deadline. We hooked up at 25 and got married at 30. Still together. We met when we were 5 years old. We had a crush on each other, but we both switched schools after 4 years, and lost communication. We met again in 9th grade and became good friends, but he had a GF. 4 years every time one of us was single, the other was in a relationship, so we stayed as best friends, and only kissed once during senior year. Eventually, after a bad breakup, he tells me if we hit 30 and we're still single we should get married. I agreed. Fast forward to 10 years after that, and we've been together for almost 2 years. Not married, but still very happy. Edit. He turned 30 not long ago. I think the key here is to have a backup for your backup. Edit. And don't let one backup find out about the other. I made this pact with a very good friend. We're both in our separate relationships that are both going very strong. And we still talk very often. She's in another country, so meeting up is kinda hard. I don't think either of us ever believed we would have needed the pact, but at the time it was nice knowing that we weren't gonna end up alone. Not successful. She asked me to marry her by 30 when we were both 19. I said sure because I had a huge crush on her anyway. We dated briefly for a summer before she went back to college and have been good friends the rest of the time. She ended up becoming a Catholic sister after college. She takes similar vows of celibacy and poverty as a nun would, but lives in the world as opposed to being secluded in a convent, and works for the church in finance. We still see each other, are both in our late 30s. We have talked about it and she does admit to wanting in the past to be with me romantically again. That I am the only person she has been intimate with, but that she believes strongly in what she is doing and her vows. I love her dearly as a person and don't think of her romantically anymore. But it would be hard for me to say no if she left the church and wanted to see me again. Oh god, the last time this thread happened. Well, Imgur webpage. Speaking of which, does anyone know what happened to that poor sap? I knew a guy in high school who had a huge crush on a girl that was 5 years younger than him. They never dated because she thought the age thing was creepy, but she told him that once she was 18, if they were both single they would hook up. They aren't married yet, but they have been together for 4 years. Age gaps tend to get more appropriate as we get older, but the foundation of this is a bit strange. Because 16 and 11 is too far apart in terms of physicality and maturity. It is different when two grown adults are into each other. I dunno. No judgment on his current, legal, relationship. But why was he so into a little kid when he was a teenager? What was so great about her that he even paid her any attention? Most teenagers just dismiss young kids. We have a semi-joking pact with my 100% queer friender up that if shit goes bad for American LGBT people, we'll pair off and pretend to be straight. Not successful story. Met a guy in high school. We made the pact. I still have the written contract. For 30. We dated on and off for 10 years. I got married at 28. And he got married at 30. We still talk now and again. He is married overseas with a new baby and I have 2 kids. His wife hates me. She got married to someone else and so did I. We don't talk anymore.